This is Maestro with a Dawn of War 2 Retribution Elite Modcast. Today, we have a 1v1 on Calderis Refinery. Our first player is going to begin with Zevargel, playing as the Chaos Lord. Big, tanky, destructive melee hero that walks through cover and other things and cannot be suppressed. His opponent is going to be Floid, playing as the Lictor Alpha. This is an infiltrating melee assassin commander with displacement. So then, before I really get into this cast, gonna make a quick mention, a little bit of a reference to my vlog, if you watched that. Not too many people did, actually. But I recently did receive I guess I'll call it a temporary teaching job lasting at least about 6 weeks. So I'm not gonna get too much into the details, or really much at all into the details of exactly what that means, but just suffice to say that I've found some work, and I could actually be quite busy over the next several weeks, so if there is a decrease in my upload speed, just kind of letting you know that that is the reason why, and that is going to take priority. Now, that being said, I'm still here for this cast right now, and we're going to move on to it. These are two players both of these players have been around for quite a while. Both of them are quite solid. And we also see both of these players definitely on their main factions. Zevargel, not only very much a Chaos player, but also very specifically a Chaos Lord player. Whereas Floid is, I feel like, one of the signature Tyranid players in this game. I don't know if he necessarily has a signature hero, or maybe he does and I just don't know it well enough, but I've definitely seen him play both the Hive Tyrant as well as the Lictor Alpha. Don't recall as much of the Ravener, but I think he splits his time between all of the Tyranid heroes to some extent. And this matchup is also one that, it definitely goes way back, and of course the power levels of heroes changes a lot over time, but these are heroes that have classically definitely been a thing in 1v1 throughout the course of Dawn of War 2. I think in the Chaos Lord's case, he's... I'm hesitant to say that he's a fairly easy commander, but in some ways he is. He's definitely... I would definitely say he's basic and fundamental at the very least. And the Lictor Alpha is also someone who has certain very, very powerful features, and we've already talked about some of these in some previous casts, where the big thing is, not the big thing, but one of the big things is the Flesh Hook. So that Flesh Hook, just giving you that on-demand displacement, which is incredibly powerful against just about every race for different reasons. Now, the Chaos Lord, on the other hand, he's actually a fairly good hero into the Lictor Alpha because of the fact that he is less vulnerable to that Flesh Hook. He is immune to weapon knockback. One of, I'm trying to think of exactly how many commanders are. I think it's 3. Maybe there's one more in there. But not too many commanders are by default immune to weapon knockback. And this is very powerful against the Lictor Alpha's Flesh Hook because you just don't have to worry about that. Whereas most commanders in this game, if they get Flesh Hooked by the Lictor Alpha, and there's some follow-up from some Hormagaunts, it's a big problem. And some other things we're seeing here, we see our Chaos Lord also upgraded to the Combi Flamer, and this is something that is also pretty fundamental in many matchups. This Combi Flamer is a ranged upgrade. It's a ranged upgrade on a melee commander, but it gives him very respectable ranged damage, 31.61. That's a little bit more than 2 TAC models. And what this does is that normally the Chaos Lord is punished very hard by kiting and focus firing him. When he has the Combi Flamer, he can kind of turn things around a little bit. As we see here, the damage that he's doing to these Termagants is not insignificant. So when enemy racers attempt to kite him when he has that Combi Flamer, he punishes it by just bleeding their models. It also grants that Immolate ability, which is just a targeted flame ability. Not targeted, actually. It's actually skill shot. Can do good area of effect damage against some of those squishy squads like Termagants. Meanwhile, out of Floid, we're going to see a double Termagant opening, and this is something that is... it's definitely old school and very classical. Sometimes you will see more old school Tyranid players just get this because it's just what they're used to. These days, you typically see the triple Hormagaunt more commonly because Hormagaunts are faster. The melee damage also allows you to punish retreats by your opponent a lot harder. But in this case, the double Termagant is still very relevant against the Chaos Lord because of the Toxin Sacs upgrade, which grants them the crippling poison ability. We also saw some use of it just there. There it was used against the Heretics. Oh, and the Lictor Alpha actually pretty close to going down. And oh my god! The lone aspiring champion model left on the Heretic squad actually manages to chase and finish it off. Stays in there just a little bit too long, but actually won't be punished for it because there is only 2 squads of Termagants in here. Crippling Poison is also on cooldown because it was used on that squad of Heretics. So the Chaos Space Marines decide to force melee. Chaos Space Marines would win very handily in melee against Termagants, but they did retreat out of there once the Hormagaunts were there on approach, as the Chaos Space Marines definitely don't want to deal with the Hormagaunts in melee. So with our Lictor Alpha now, the Lictor Alpha is one of only 2 infiltrating commanders in the game, at least by default. 3 if you count the Inquisitor with the Interrogator's armor. But being an infiltrating commander is very inherently powerful, and we're also seeing just how powerful that Combi Flamer is against those Hormagaunts. Also a little bit of a missed opportunity to use Kill the Weak there. Even though Kill the Weak is normally meant as kind of a melee counter, you can use it against units in your retreat, and I think it could have scored at least 1, maybe even 2 more models on that Hormagaunt squad, or brood. So, by virtue of the Lictor Alpha being an infiltrating commander, he's he's pretty much undetectable at the start of the game, so that is going to demand aspiring champion upgrades from a Chaos player or the equivalent detector unit for any other race. So we see the double aspiring champion, which against most races, I would say going double aspiring champion this early wouldn't be too common. Normally you would want to get 1 aspiring champion on whichever Heretic squad is going to be like kind of part of your main fighting force, the way this one is, whereas the other Heretic squad, usually used more for capping, will be usually not get the aspiring champion, at least not yet. And that could be just kind of dealing with the Lictor Alpha. It could also just be kind of a quirk for how Zevargel plays. So, as Zevargel, he went for a very light tier 1. He had, well, I mean, he did have the upgrades in the Combi Flamer as well as the 2 aspiring champions, but no tier 1.5 squad for him. And this is also something that is, in my opinion, definitely more a Chaos Lord thing, running with this light of a tier 1. Sorcerer, I honestly think you have to get a tier 1.5 squad. Bloodletter's going to teleport in there. So Bloodletters is his first tier 2 purchase. No Blood Crusher, at least not yet. We'll see the Bloodletters there take out one of those warrior models. And I've definitely heard some opinions from, one of the ways that I've heard it said, from a good player, was someone actually said that Bloodletters counter the entire Tyranid tier 2, which I'm gonna hazard to say that might be a very slight exaggeration, but of course, you know, with many exaggerations, there is a certain amount of truth there. With something about Bloodletters just highly effective against Tyranids. Let the galaxy burn out of the Chaos Lord. This is a nice war gear, although the Chaos Lord mostly just drawing a lot of attention here, keeping these Termagants in base for just a little bit longer, and they actually bleed 2 models just trying to walk out from the fire. They don't have much health left either. I think this Termagant brood needs to retreat and go back to base. So if we do think about it, the Bloodletter is certainly going to be very good against the Warriors. With the power melee on those Bloodletters, we'll just tear apart those Warrior models, even when they have their adrenal glands. And another thing we also see from Tyranids in Tier 2 is a Venom Brood. Venom Brood, 2 counter vehicles if needed, but the Bloodletters just also provide such a very, very powerful counter to that. We've also got the Zoanthrope. Yeah, Zoanthrope would also be highly, highly vulnerable to Bloodletters. So you know what, the more I think about it, it makes a lot of sense why Bloodletters are actually very, very powerful against Tyranid Tier 2. So I think the remaining unit that we haven't talked about is the Tyrant Guard. In that case, that's probably the unit that the Bloodletters are least effective against, because they do have to contend with the splash damage attacks of the Tyrant Guard. But I imagine if you do a good job of cycling the abilities of the Bloodletters, using the phase shift, making sure your Bloodletters get worship, then they actually would do quite well against the Tyrant Guard as well. Because their Hellblades with power melee damage would just rip apart the Tyrant Guard, which has super heavy infantry armor. So generator bashing attempt here. And we're seeing Floid not even engaging this just yet. Gonna look to get the Warriors as well as the Lictor Alpha around in the back. Now, the Termagants are also very critical in this engagement as well. First Crippling Poison goes on the Bloodletters, but then the Bloodletters get a teleport into combat against the Termagants. So the Bloodletters now putting some damage down on the Bloodletters. Oh no, the Bloodletters actually wipe one of the Tyranid squads, one of the Termagant squads. Same thing each way, but we will see a kill traded out as the Lictor Alpha actually finished off the aspiring champion of the Heretic squad with the Flesh Hook. So that's another one of those really good uses about the Flesh Hook. Aside from the fact that it has displacement, it's still useful against units in retreat because it still does a lot of single target damage. So you can use it to snipe models in retreat. In that case, it was the final model, so it wiped the squad. We're also going to see full upgrades on Floyd's Lictor Alpha as he tries to defend against the Bloodletters doing this generator bash. Bloodletters at the point where they might lose a model. They have phased out of the warp. They're also in retreat. Lictor Alpha might see if Lictor Alpha does succeed and get a single model off. So Chaos Lord, man, Chaos Lord actually even forcing retreats just completely by himself with that Let the Galaxy Burn. So we see the upgrades on the Chaos Lord, but we've already seen both of these in action, both the Combi Flamer as well as the Let the Galaxy Burn, which is just technically the Warrior is the Armor of Inferno. But that is just a very, very big area of effectability. Shoots out 4 fireballs, and there is also damage over time in the areas where those fireballs land. This could be another dead Heretic squad. I think it was, yeah. So we're going to just more things that are very, very powerful about that Lictor Alpha Flesh Hook. And this is something we've already talked about. Even for squads that have a die last upgradable leader, it's kind of a double-edged sword where if that leader gets pulled in by the Flesh Hook and then there's punishment in the form of Hormgaunts as well as the Lictor Alpha, you could be looking at the entire squad getting wiped off purely just off that. Meanwhile, I did want to talk about the upgrades on this Lictor Alpha. We're going to see the Scything Talons, and this is, I personally like this one because you get the Scythe ability. It says suppresses and knocks back nearby enemies, and that's very helpful when the Lictor Alpha wants to counter melee. The Lictor Alpha has many strengths, but he can get overwhelmed in melee by units that have overwhelming damage, which is a lot of melee units. Any dedicated melee unit usually has very, very high damage numbers, and this gives you some on-demand disruption. I actually used it there, and I honestly don't like that use of the Scythe ability on the Chaos Space Marines there. I mean, at most that just gets them off the cap, but I think if he had actually just attacked them a bit with the Lictor Alpha, he probably could have pressured them off with the 81.25 power melee DPS. Looks like we might have a big engagement happening right here. Chaos Lord will be moving in. The Let the Galaxy Burn. Oh, not completely dodged. It looks like Floyd saw it coming and he just moved out of the way. But maybe Zevargel even called his movement a little bit and one of those fireballs still hit. And yeah, and as a result, this Termagant Brood is already so low. So the only Termagant Brood uses its crippling poison, but oh no, Floyd is standing around in the fire. Termagants are so low, so are the Raveners. You know, the Warriors are going in ahead along with the Hormagaunts, and they are getting things done. They will bring the Chaos Space Marines down to 2 models, but the Bloodletters are still in here. So are the Heretics, and the Heretics, of course, they will focus more on worshipping than actually fighting to support the Bloodletters. However, at some point, I think they will get overwhelmed. At the same time, there's part of me thinking that I think he can actually turn around and fight this with the Bloodletters having that worship. Oh no, but whether that was Scythe or a special attack, that disruption that time worked quite well on the Bloodletters. Now the Bloodletters struggling quite a bit more. Down to 2 models, but they do force off the Hormagaunts. So yeah, that Scythe ability, I personally believe it needs to be reserved primarily for the Bloodletters. And if the Bloodletters aren't on the field and the Heretics are looking to engage in melee, then it can be used on the Heretics. But using it on the Chaos Space Marines is definitely not an optimal use of it. So Zevargel is going to pull out the Great Unclean One, which, you know, I feel like I don't see the Great Unclean One that much in a 1v1 game. But there are definitely some good things about this Great Unclean One. Floid currently does not really have a great source of damage against the Great Unclean One. Raveners do piercing damage, so they've got a 70% penalty against the super heavy infantry armor of the Great Unclean One. Warriors, technically warriors are going to do full damage to a Great Unclean One, but their base DPS is not actually that high. And in general, the Hormagaunts would actually be the highest source of damage against the Great Unclean One, but a squishy squad like that does not want to get in melee with it. Otherwise, it will just stomp them, disrupt them, and then do enough damage to them to scare them off into retreating and losing models. So Great Unclean One is being used to push the generator farm, which, I mean, it certainly can. But this also does open up the possibility for Floid to play the map control game, move around. We already see Floid. I mean, Floyd's going to lose his generator farm, but we'll see if maybe he can get anything in return as he moves the Raveners as well as the Termagants for a bash on the other side. So he might get... I actually think he gets a full power bash here. So I don't think this is the greatest move by Zevargel to commit the Great Unclean One all the way over here. Because he... Like, even as slow as this generator bash looks, I don't think any units from Zevargel, aside from maybe this Predator that's coming out. All right, maybe the Predator can stop this, actually, as this bash is happening pretty slowly. So yeah, Predator will move out. But there's still so much more that Floyd did get done, which he's going to decap this victory point. He decapped the middle. He decapped much of the resources on this side for Zevargel. And he will actually get the decap on the power here. So he won't actually bash any of the generators. Although there still is quite a bit of time where Zevargel's economy is disrupted from this. Until he pulls one of these squads back over, Ravener model will go down in retreat. We might see... Oh, very, very nicely timed. Could that actually finish off the Raveners? I don't think so. No, not enough range damage there to finish it off. Chaos Space Marine is going to be completely unupgraded. So, actually, no, I'm wrong. They do have Eternal War, but no other upgrades. Chaos Predator will go for Mark of Khorne. Given what we're seeing here, I think the Mark of Khorne is not a bad upgrade. For much of the past year, I've kind of been saying the meta of the Predator is either between the Las Cannon, if you need to deal with vehicles, and the Mark of Nurgle otherwise. But in this case... we kind of get a split of effectiveness where the increased bolter damage is going to be great against things, the Termagants, the Hormagaunts, the Ravener Brood. Also the Lictor Alpha himself. We never even finished talking about the upgrades. Pheromone Cloud. Pheromone Cloud actually allows the Lictor Alpha to reinforce on the field, which always strike me as pretty interesting and as kind of uniquely powerful as well. A commander who has an ability that can actually just allow squads to reinforce out on the field. Need to be close to him, though. Scythe will be used on the Chaos Space Marines. So this Chaos Predator is actually getting quite a lot done. I mean, we see the pretty much the instant retreats. The Termagants didn't even take any damage, but they know that, like, if they get hit by one shot from the cannon, they're going to lose a big chunk of their health. So Floyd has a Carnifex, completely unupgraded at the moment. At this point, this is actually kind of rough for him. I think he's got to make it a Venom Cannon Carnifex. And he's not even engaging at the moment because I think he knows that he doesn't really have enough to deal with what's coming out of Zevargel. So Floyd has to concede the victory points for the moment. We're going to see the Lictor Alpha get a little bit of a taste of his own medicine. He'll actually get pulled in by the Great Unclean One. But he is able to just retreat. Because there wasn't actually a whole lot of follow-up to that, but maybe the Bloodletters can actually finish him off in retreat. I think they can. It should only take one, maybe two swings. Easy kill. So that's a nice win for Zevargel. This is starting to look like a very strong situation for Zevargel. Will indeed be a Venom Cannon. Yeah, I don't think... If he's only got one Carnifex, I think he pretty much had to. Now, the thing is, I'm saying I think he pretty much had to get that Venom Cannon Carnifex, and honestly, I'm also not sure that it's even enough. Like, it allows him to put some threat on the Great Unclean One, as well as the Predator. But if the Great Unclean One and the Predator are actually together, I feel like Floyd doesn't actually have enough to take a full-on fight. So he's not taking a full-on fight. He's trying to find value elsewhere. He's going to continue the Generator Bash. We'll take out the Node. He's not going to get anything other than the Node, though, as the Bloodletter Teleport is going to come in. I wouldn't be surprised if we just see an instant retreat here. More likely, yeah. That's the better plan, to use the Crippling Poison than just to try to walk away, but I wasn't sure if he would do that. Still took some pretty significant damage on the Raveners just from the Bloodletter Teleport. Their Teleport Charge, rather. So Bloodletters, they have a manual teleport, which is an activated ability. But their Charge also uses a teleport animation. Ooh, wow. Chaos Predator actually just eats the Bioplasma shot from the Venom Cannon Carnifex. Big shot also going out on the Warriors, which are trying to put some pressure on the Great Unclean One. But that will be the Stomp ability used. Warriors actually don't get knocked back. I think they just press the retreat button in time to not get knocked back. Meanwhile, continued generator pressure by Floyd. So Floyd playing a lot of the map control game here. And Floyd did a pretty good job here, and that's also why it was so good for him to not just retreat from the Bloodletters, because he kind of just disengaged from Zevargel's Bloodletters, and now he's just making other things other things happen around the map. Man, that was a really hard phrase to say, just to say make other things happen. So Chaos Space Marines now have the Tzeentch upgrade, just giving them the only target that they really get the bonus damage against is the Warriors, but part of the reason also you just want to upgrade to Tzeentch is that aside from being good against heavy armor, it's also just an increase in base DPS. You go up from 13.42 to 18.15, which is roughly a 35% increase. Meanwhile, the Raveners, have they been forgot about? No, he's going to keep them in play. He's going to keep them in play, and he might get more generator bashing done with this. In fact, I just realized he actually owns the farm. Unfortunately for him, what he doesn't own are any of the victory points. So again, Floyd is doing that in part because he doesn't really have what he needs to actually fight Zevargel. This Chaos Lord also cannot fight a Carnifex, not even a Venom Cannon Carnifex in melee. So we'll just retreat out of there and with enough health so that it won't die. Meanwhile, that should be a dead Termagant Brood. Yeah. I'm not sure, you know... Part of me actually doesn't like that the Termagant Brood was lost. That's a potential crippling poison lost against the Bloodletters or the Chaos Lord. But man, we've got the double Predator out of Zevargel. This is looking rougher and rougher for Floyd, and I'm not personally feeling the Neurothrope as really a great option to this. I mean, I guess the thing about the Neurothrope is that it's more about trying to focus on the Great Unclean One and then also the infantry. I personally think he should have gotten another Venom Cannon Carnifex. The Neurothrope is going to have more potential damage against the Great Unclean One, but the Neurothrope is not really going to add anything to dealing with these two Predators. And I don't feel that the single Venom Cannon Carnifex is enough against that. So for the moment, though, I guess some things we do see there. We see Cataclysm out of the Neurothrope, knocking the Bloodletters off, so that's going to buy him some time. Man, Floyd, though, is really on point with these Bioplasm, and he's actually going to finish off one of the Predators, Zevargel, not taking it out to safety. Oh, but that's going to be a Lictor Alpha dead for what I believe is the third time. Tossed aside by the Great Unclean One there. Oh, and the Neurothrope also going to be still very, very vulnerable to the Bloodletters, whereas, you know, another Carnifex would really not care that much about the Bloodletters. Okay, Bloodletters, though, they are unsupported, and they were going pretty far into enemy lines. I think they lose a model or two here. They're still at 4, but they're so low on hit points. They're getting in range up to Heretic Worship, but can they just make sure they get out of there? That's going to be an Imperial Abyss. Imperial Abyss. I don't know about that Imperial Abyss. Imperial Abyss. At best, it takes out the Neurothrope. And if it doesn't, 10 hit points, another hook, but no, Neurothrope will live. Oh no. Now the lone Venom Cannon Carnifex being targeted by the Predator. And we have the Chaos Lord actually tying the Venom Cannon Carnifex in melee so that it can't shoot back at the Chaos Predator. Now Floyd trying to do some backcapping with his Raveners, but unfortunately I feel like Floyd backcapping with his Raveners here is still kind of an unfortunate symptom of the fact that he just doesn't really have what he needs to really deal with Zevargel. I mean, for the moment he's getting back out on the field, he did enough damage to the Great Unclean One. I feel that he stole a Predator kill. Like, I feel like Floyd got a Predator kill in part because I honestly think Zevargel just dropped his micro. So yeah, although, I mean, Floyd bought a little bit of time, but I don't think he really established an advantage there over Zevargel. I think Zevargel pretty much maintains the advantage, even though he gave up the victory points for a few seconds. He lost like maybe 20 victory points from that push that Floyd made. And now Zevargel is actually in such a better position to put out a new unit than Floyd is. Alright, meanwhile, Let the Galaxy Burn going to go down on the Hormagaunts as well as the Warriors. They're overwhelming the Chaos Space Marines. Chaos Space Marines still have all three of their models. Okay, one goes down. Level 3 Chaos Space Marines. Very, very close to level 4, though. They need, like, one more Hormagaunt, and then they're there. Unfortunately for Floyd, that's another squad forced off. And he still doesn't have much time. I see what he's doing with the Raveners. I didn't catch this before, but he's actually infiltrating his Raveners with the enhanced muscle coil. They're burrowed. They can only be detected by the heretics. So Floyd is buying a lot of time with that. Bloodletters, however, going to teleport right into the Neurothrope. The Neurothrope, what can he do about this? This is where we need, like, Scythe to come in. Oh, no. I think that's the end of the Neurothrope. It would be crazy if it isn't. Okay, the Neurothrope makes it away once again. Unfortunately, I feel like we're seeing more and more why this Neurothrope, in my opinion, is not working out that well. I mean, I guess when it did use not Cataclysm, Paroxysm before, it definitely got some damage on the Great Unclean One. But I'm just finding that the Neurothrope, much like a Zoanthrope would in Tier 2, is getting countered pretty hard by these Bloodletters. Whereas a Carnifex, so now we finally have the second Carnifex coming out of Floyd. This one could actually be a Thornback. But I also wouldn't argue against another Venom Cannon. Meanwhile, the Raveners finally went down. They got another decap, but it cost them their lives. So Zevargel is just going to maintain the double cap once again. And now he's got Terminators out on the field. And Zevargel, he could very easily get another unit with the resources that he has, but he doesn't have the population for it. So he might as well just get like an aspiring champion on his Chaos Space Marines. I mean, level 4 Chaos Space Marines, Tzeentch Chaos Space Marines, fully upgraded, does a ridiculous amount of damage. The Warriors would not last very long at all against that. Alright, we're getting very close to like it's now or never for Floyd. The Hormagaunts are like already going to be forced off the field. Unfortunately, Floyd... Oh, no, also another Let the Galaxy Burn. This is like probably going to be like another retreat for Floyd. Yeah. Oh, no, this actually hurts so much to see. I think we're getting very, very close to this being game. Cataclysm gets thrown in from the Neurothrope, but doesn't knock off the Chaos Lord. Chaos Lord, though, is nearly taken out, but he will be fine. So this Carnifex... Is this Carnifex even upgraded? Yeah, it's a Thornback Carnifex. I was wondering if it was just an unupgraded Carnifex. But my god, the Neurothrope is just having so much trouble getting anything done with these Bloodletters. I mean, that's... Like, to deal with this, he would still need Termagant Broods out on the field. Alright, he's still able to put down the Paroxysm. And the Great Unclean One is dying for some reason. That just feels like an overextension from Zevargel. Now, one of the Carnifexes is really low. But you know what else is low? Floyd's victory points. He's about to lose that Thornback Carnifex. I think only one more shot from the Predator. finishes it off, but the Predator no longer has a target acquired on it. So, man, this is what desperation play, just straight up moving the Hormagaunts in here. I mean, he'll get the decap, but I don't think it's sustainable at all. Yeah, and he should also lose the Hormagaunts for it. No, the retreat path actually favors the Hormagaunts, and they will get out from the other side, but I still don't think it matters. I think the Bloodletters here finish the cap, and then I think Zevargel does take this game. Yeah, I was going to say, unfortunately, Floyd... Oh, okay, no, Cataclysm is going to buy a little bit more time. Oh, but the Neurothroat pays for it with its life. Yeah, unfortunately, it's kind of been the story of, like, the last 10 minutes of this game, where Floyd has... the game has been dragged on so long, and Floyd has found ways to just drag it on, but it doesn't actually feel like he's been in this game for, like, the past 10 minutes. All right, we have another just desperate attempt from the Lictor Alpha. Can the Lictor Alpha get the decap in time? I don't think so. I think he goes down before he does, yeah. And that will definitely be it. That is Zevargel taking this game. Floyd calls the GG. And that will be it. I hope you enjoyed it, and have a good night.